Let me introduce myself. I'm Carl Handok of the UP School of Economics. I will be the moderator for this closing plenary session of the 59th Annual PES Meeting and Conference. I thank you all for joining us today. And this afternoon, our panel session is titled Towards a Transformed Philippines. As we are all aware, and as tackled by the different sessions in this conference, the transformation is almost forced upon us by the pandemic, disrupting our lives in many dimensions. Most of us grappled with new and emerging technologies, work arrangements, and generally our own way of life. So this session speakers will try to enlighten us in navigating this brave new world of a transformed Philippines. First of all, I will just introduce this conference. The 59th PES Annual Meeting and Conference is being held in conjunction with the Economic and Financial Literacy Week. And despite the pandemic, the PES is continuing its advocacy in promoting economic and financial literacy among its stakeholders, especially the private sector, as mandated by the Republic Act 10922, or the Economic and Financial Literacy Act. Now, before we begin, here are some house rules. Our session will have an open forum towards the end. And if you're joining us in Zoom, you may send your questions through the Q&A box. And if you're on Facebook Live, you may send your questions through the comment section. I would encourage you not to use the chat box to put in your questions, because that may disturb the speakers and the fellow participants. So I highly encourage you to use the Q&A box. Now, the session will be recorded and will be made available through the official Facebook page of the PES. Towards the end of the session, a link with the evaluation form will be provided. If you need an e-certificate for this session, you must accomplish this evaluation form, whether you attend through Zoom or Facebook Live. I also want to have this opportunity to acknowledge and thank our conference partners, the platinum sponsors, De La Salle University School of Economics, the National Economic and Development Authority, and the Philippine Competition Commission. Our gold sponsors, the Aboitiz Power Corporation, the Bank of the Philippine Islands, the DOST Philippine Council for Agriculture, Aquatic, and Natural Resource Research and Development. Is this Picard? Yeah, and the Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom Philippines. And finally, for our silver sponsors, the Ateneo Center for Economic Research and Development, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, and the Union Bank of the Philippines. We have something special going on before we proceed with our panel session. We would like to take this opportunity to launch the latest issue of the Philippine Review of Economics. This is a journal jointly published by the PES and the University of the Philippines School of Economics. This is special because this issue is in honor of Dr. Benito Legarda, Beniting to his colleagues, co-founder and third president of the PES. And he was the first editor of the Philippine Economic Journal, the precursor to the PRE. Now, to introduce the special issue, may we call on one of its editors, former Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Deputy Governor Diwa Gingunut.
Well, thank you very much. Let me share my screen. Can you see it? Okay. Well, thank you very much again. In behalf of my co-editor, former NEDA Secretary Emmanuel Isguera, who also happened to be my partner in our undergraduate thesis 45 years ago. That actually dates us. It is my pleasure to announce the virtual launching of the special issue of the Philippine Review of Economics. This is a special issue as it is dedicated in honor of Dr. Benito Legarda, Jr., who happened to be my deputy governor at the then Central Bank of the Philippines when I joined it in 1978. That was 43 years ago. We fondly called him Beniting, Dr. Beniting. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Legarda was one of the 5 Harvard graduates who founded the Philippine Economic Society in 1962. The others were Armand Fabella, the first PES president, Amado Castro, the second PES president, Quirico Camus Jr., and former Central Bank Governor Jose B. Fernandez Jr. Before presiding over the PES after Pabella and Castro, Dr. Ligarda was for a few years the first editor of the Philippine Economic Journal, now the Philippine Review of Economics. And this is how it looked before. Okay, it's bluish, but now there's a different color for the Philippine Review of Economics. And this is indeed a fitting tribute to Dr. Ligarda. There are 10 articles in this special issue. Like Dr. Ligarda's diverse interest and expertise, they span a whole range of economic concerns. Because he was such an interesting renaissance of a man, economist and historian, diplomat and patriot. 4 articles were all about him by Secretary Jerry Sicat, Prime Minister Cesar Virata, and of course, Professor Jeffrey Williamson and Yuzuki Takagi. Dr. Maris Jokno, the 5th writer, wrote about the history and the dynamics of colonial Burma's monopolized rice trade, linking it to the international markets. It is also most fitting that central bank economists Eloisa Glindro and Marites Oliva contributed to the collection because Dr. Ligarda spent the first years of his life as a monetary authority. The last 4 contributions by Dr. Margarita de Boque Gonzalez, Dr. Maria Socorro Gochoco Bautista, Dr. Delano Villanueva, and Dr. Roberto Mariano, and finally, Dr. Roberto Mariano and Dr. Suleiman Osmukur all tackled issues close to the heart of Dr. Ligarda: monetary policy, credit and asset booms, savings and debt, and of course, the health pandemic. We shall miss Dr. Beniting's signature bow tie, his own signature every time he dropped a line or two to his staff and friends, and of course, his contagious laugh. With this volume of precious collection about him and his interests, we hope to keep his memory alive. If there is something different from what has been said about Dr. Beniting, it is his attention to details. To some people, trivial things. He wrote several books about those trivial things during the 2 imperial occupations. He described the oppressive acts of 2 conquering armies, those who died of hunger and deprivation, confiscation of means of transport at the time, and the tales of those who survived the war. This was the historian in him. He believed in what Father Miguel Bernard wrote about him: little things cast long shadows. Yet before he died at age 94, his last commentaries were extremely youthful and contemporary. Red tagging through the Anti-Terror Act and the incursions into Philippine exclusive economic zone by foreign troops. This was the economist in him. He assessed the unlikelihood of the Anti-Terror Act being affirmed by the Supreme Court, given the number of Supreme Court justices appointed by the current president. Just like many of us, he was concerned about the growing threat of state terrorism. So most important, it is the patriot in him that emboldened Dr. Ligarda to speak out his mind. These 3 signature aspects of Dr. Beniting should make this PRE edition truly memorable and worth reading, keeping, and of course, remembering. Maraming salamat po.
May we call on Attorney De Los Santos to provide a brief response in behalf of the Legarda family?
Thank you so very much. Blessed afternoon to all of you, to Deputy Governor Diwag Ginigundo, to Dr. Bani Esguerra, the officers, trustees, and members of the Philippine Economic Society and the University of the Philippines School of Economics. On behalf of our family, we thank you all from our hearts for this very kind and thoughtful gesture of honoring our beloved Tito Bennett. That's what we call Dr. Benitino. Dr. Isabel Legarda, Tito Bennett's only child, couldn't join us today, but expresses her utmost gratitude to all of you. I personally would like to thank Dr. Manny Esguerra, who reached out to us and acted as our liaison for this occasion. And gladly, we accept this special edition of the Philippine Review of Economics. While I've known Tito Bennett all my life, I was only able to pick his brain during his later years, when I would invite him pre-pandemic to Saturday lunch at Terry's in the old podium. He would always order his angulas al ajillo and wouldn't care whatever else I would order. Since I invited, the meals and drinks were at my expense, but that was loose change compared to the volumes of knowledge he would impart to me during those meals together. To give you a glimpse of the man, I think it best that it comes from none other than his daughter. I hope you don't mind me reading excerpts from Dr. Isabel Legarda's column in Business World just a few weeks after Tito Bennett's passing. In his almost century-long lifetime, he saw the world move from calesas to cars, music at home played on pianos to playlists on Pandora, international travel by ship to jumbo jets powerful enough to fly directly from the east coast of the US to the Philippines. He survived and wrote about World War II in Manila, obtained degrees from Georgetown and Harvard, married, parented, worked, retired, studied, wrote. Thanks to his grandchildren, he was just beginning to learn what an app was, what a meme was. He cared deeply about getting the facts right. This was the fire that lit his efforts to right the hills of Sampaloc. Sometimes we would be visiting some historic site listening to a tour guide, and if the guide said something slightly inaccurate about, say, a Gothic cathedral or a historic battle, my mother and I would brace ourselves waiting for the polite but pointed correction that my father would be unable to resist offering. Sometimes we would forget that he was listening to conversations quite carefully. He might appear absorbed in his meal or seem to be relaxing at the table with his eyes closed. But suddenly he would interject with a witty rebuttal or an incisive insight. He would write out all his lectures or articles longhand on a yellow legal pad, and the ones to be delivered in Spanish came out in Spanish with no need for a first draft in any other language. He was known for his gargantuan intellect, but what people may not know is that he had a tender side for those he loved. If he noticed one of us admiring something in a shop, he would secretly buy it and give it as a gift for the next birthday or holiday. He would insist, despite my protestations, on traveling across the world to celebrate my birthday with me, even long after I had stopped celebrating it myself. He was deeply disappointed not to have been able to do so for my last birthday because of the pandemic. He could sometimes be clueless about blurting out sensitive questions, but also sweet and concerned if someone he cared about was truly in trouble or in pain. He was as stubborn as could be and often impatient, traits he seems to have passed on to me. But perhaps because of these tendencies, he held everyone around him, family, employees, colleagues, the Philippine government, the Japanese government, to high standards, and would not be content with less than our best. At the same time, he could shrug off infuriating political or economic developments with an acceptance that sometimes baffled me. He was a man who believed, because he had seen, that everything passes, even exceedingly bad things, and the arc toward justice can be long. Others have highlighted with deep respect what my father achieved. I want to remember here that the impact of his great life on those closest to him lay in the moments we felt cared for because he was on our side. To our country's rising scholars and those who are guiding them, I ask that you carry on my father's inextinguishable passion for justice, precision in all things, and the highest of standards. There was no pwede na yan or okay na yan with him. If it is not okay, do not rest. Fight for what is right. Whether it be a correctly placed fact, a needed recognition of past atrocities, or a refusal to let politics trump truth and honor. Stand up for truth and honor as he did. There is no better way to respect his life and legacy. Every human death is the loss of a unique person, which is why, whatever our beliefs about what happens to us after death, the loss is so painful. In my father's case, I realized the need to mourn is the nation's as much as my own. So many have commented on how his death marks the end of an era in Philippine letters. But for me, for our family, his death means the personal loss of a special presence that can never be replaced. Never again that booming laugh, those funny interjections. Never again the passing on of stories at the dinner table from an encyclopedic memory and a wealth of lived experience. The world had him for almost 100 years, but there's never enough time. Once again, from our family, thank you all so very much. God bless you and stay safe.
Thank you, Attorney De Los Santos, for that very touching response from you, and also likewise to Deputy Governor Gunigundo for introducing to us the special issue with the PRE. Attorney De Los Santos, could you give the name of the restaurant again? Because I bet if Dr. Legarda likes the food, then it's probably good. Okay, and so
It's it's
yeah,
at Terry's
Terry's.
Terry's Bistro. No, but he, according to his grandchildren, my cousins, my second cousins, he loved. Well, I can attest to this. He loved chocolate cake and he loved oysters. That's so much I know.
Man of
Okay.
good taste. So just a trivia, Dr. Legarda's last, as far as I know, last article in the PRE was an article of the economic conditions during Rizal's time. That was 10 years ago in honor of Rizal's 150th birth anniversary. So I myself have been lucky to have contributed to that volume, and I look up to Dr. Beniting um, for inspiration and for that intellectual stimulus, so to speak. So this PRE issue in honor of Dr. Beniting Legarda will be made available this November. And you may also want to check out the special issue regarding COVID that will also come out in November during this month. Now, thank you again, Attorney De Los Santos and Deputy Governor Gunigundo. Now, let's transition towards the session today, the panel discussion towards a transformed Philippines. It is my honor to introduce our panelists. First is Dr. Rafaelita Aldaba, FITA to her colleagues. FITA is Undersecretary for Competitiveness and Innovation of the Department of Trade and Industry. She fulfills a key role in the formulation and implementation of the Inclusive Innovation Industrial Strategy, I3S, which puts innovation at the heart of the country's new industrial policy. She is leading DTI's initiatives in preparing industries for the fourth industrial revolution and advancing the digital transformation of MSMEs and large enterprises, establishing regional inclusive innovation centers or RIICs, developing the country's creative industries, and growing a robust startup ecosystem in the country. Undersecretary Aldaba is also a board member of the Board of Governors of the Philippine Board of Investments or BOI. As a researcher turned policymaker, Dr. Aldaba was also a senior research fellow and acting vice president of the Philippine Institute for Development Studies. She has extensive research experience, authored various publications on development issues, and conceptualized and managed research projects with various international organizations, including the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, the Japan International Cooperation Agency, and the United States Agency for International Development. After Usec Fita, Dr. Jose V. Camacho, Dong, to his colleagues, is the 10th Chancellor of UPLB. He was elected by the Board of Regents at its 135th meeting on September 24 and started his 3-year term on the 1st of November last year, 2020. Dr. Camacho was the Dean of the Graduate School from February 2012 to October 31, 2020, and a Professor of Economics at the College of Economics and Management in UPLB. He first served as the Associate Dean and Chair of Academic Programs and Curriculum of CEM and Chair of the Department of Economics in 2001 and 2004. Chancellor Camacho's vision mission statement is entitled Future-Proofing UPLB. He specified the need to future-proof UPLB's human resources, lifelong learning and instruction system, research and innovation system, commitment to a public good and social welfare and global engagement. Chancellor Camacho also serves as a chair of the Technical Working Group on Graduate Education and co-chair of the Technical Working Group for the Expanded Tertiary Education Equivalency and Accreditation Program, both of the Commission of Higher Education. He finished in 2007 his Doctor of Economics with specialization in Economics of Education, Labor, and Human Resource Economics at Kyoto University, Japan, and was past president of the Philippine Economic Society in 2017. Last but not the least is Mr. Vince Dominic Yamat. He is the managing director of 917 Ventures, Globe Telecom's corporate venture builder that generates, tests, and develops new business ideas that have the potential to grow and scale fast. Before 917 Ventures, Mr. Yamat has been with Globe since 2012. He was a vice president and head of product management of Globe and played a critical role in ensuring that its customers are provided with products and services that will enable them to enjoy their digital lifestyle. As the head of product management, he enabled the organizational transformation towards a domain-based setup. Before joining product management, he was vice president of the innovation team, where he co-piloted hundreds of projects that supported B2C and B2B commercialization. Prior to Globe, Mr. Yamat was the general manager of Entertainment Gateway Group, now known as Yondu, which was then a subsidiary of Globe Telecom. In 2006, he founded and started Fidtex, a web and mobile entertainment company in the USA and Singapore. He was also CEO of Ubersoft prior to that. He also held senior executive positions at Information Gateway, Nokia Philippines, Infocom, which was then the internet company of PLDT, and Pacific Internet. So I enjoin you to please welcome each of the panelists as they give their opening statements. We start first with Usec Aldaba.
Thank you, Carl, and a very good afternoon to everyone. Maybe I would start by sharing our vision, and that is to have a dynamic industry ecosystem that would generate quality jobs and investments, enabling us to create new products and services and leading to shared prosperity for all. No one gets left behind. And to achieve this, we are implementing a new industrial policy, I3S, Inclusive Innovation Industrial Strategy, which aims to grow globally competitive and innovative industries. At the heart of the new industrial policy is innovation. Innovation is crucial as we prepare for automation, robotics, AI, and other technologies arising from the fourth industrial revolution or Industry 4.0. Digital transformation needs a whole of government and a whole of society approach. And in implementing our Industry 4.0 initiatives, DTI is working closely together with other government agencies, industry groups, academe, civil society, and other stakeholders. The role of DTI is to serve as facilitator or coordinator in the implementation of the six major pillars of IQS. I will just mention them now, but maybe later I could discuss them briefly. Number one would, of course, be embracing Industry 4.0. Of course, we view these new technologies like AI as drivers to achieve an inclusive, resilient, and sustainable industrial development. Number two is the integration of industrial production systems. Number three, capacity building and human resource development. Number four is startup and MSME growth and development. And last, number five is bridging the gaps in the innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem. And lastly is enabling our business environment.
Thank you, Usec Vita. I now call on Chancellor Dong.
Good afternoon. As part of the National University System, member of as one of the constituent universities of the university system, we wish that we'll help enable our graduates, our students to be future ready, to be future proof, that they acquire skills, education, and training to be future ready, and that we will enable them to face the challenges of the Industrial Revolution, the IR 4.0. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chancellor Dong. Mr. Yamat.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Again, thank you for inviting me here and your annual meeting and seminar. So I'm Vince Yamat. I'm the Managing Director of 917 Ventures. So they asked me to give an opening statement on how do we envision the role of our institution and how it plays towards a transformed Philippines, which is very, very important. There has been an apparent digital divide in the Philippines now that impacts social, economic, and financial inclusion. That's even heightened by the pandemic. Time, effort, money, and even lives have been wasted and lost due to the limited access to even the most basic necessities. In 917 Ventures, this is what we're trying to do now. We ideate, launch, accelerate, and scale new businesses that have the potential to grow and scale fast, to make digital transformation a more inclusive for Filipinos, both for consumers and businesses. So we've become the Philippines' largest corporate venture builder because we put real everyday pain points at the center of our advocacy. It's Filipino first above everything else, especially the underserved. We ideate opportunities by looking at 6 industries now where we can launch digital solutions that uplift the lives of the Filipino people. Through these and our portfolio companies, we empower consumers and businesses to power through and emerge stronger every day, pandemic or not. In fintech, as an example, now we have Mint, GCash. Probably most of you guys are using our product, GCash. Obviously, the undisputed #1 e-wallet. It has now become a super light app with its ever-growing ecosystem. GCash started as a digital solution for the unbanked and is now a lifeline to Filipinos, not just for financial management and transactions, but for every aspect of consumer and merchant's life. Currently, for GCash, we already have 51 million registered users. With GCash, we make sure no one is left behind, diba? As Undersecretary Rita mentioned earlier. Gusto natin lahat dito gumagamit ng GCash, no? And we continue to support communities and initiatives by becoming a tool for aid disbursement. So during the pandemic, GCash is used by the government to provide aid to our constituents. It's also a donation platform, and we're also helping raise environmental awareness through G-Forest. Moving forward, GCash continues to live up to providing finance for all by further simplifying the app's user experience and expanding to include more game-changing and life-changing features. So from basic everyday transactions, our GCash has expanded its offerings. As an example, our G-Invest product captured 70% of the domestic market of total UITF accounts. So can you imagine that, di ba? Prior to GCash, ang UITF investors in the Philippines, medyo maliit lang di ba? But when we launch our G-Invest, 70% of the total UITF accounts in the country is basically from GCash. G-Insure, our micro insurance offering launched in 2020, accounts for 1/3 of all new insurance policies in the Philippines. So think about that, diba, carefully. It's literally making it available to every single Filipino. And that's what digital can do. And one of the recent addition in GCash is GLife. So if you're a GCash user, go to GLife. You'll see a lot of products, diba, or shops there, and basically making it available to Filipinos. Our second focus area in 917 Ventures, since we're talking about digital, is digital health, where we have Consulta MD and Health Now. These two digital health services bring primary healthcare services to you in the safety and comfort of your home. Consulta MD basically is the largest telehealth company in the country, offering 24/7 phone and video consultations now with doctors for as low as 60 pesos per month. 60 pesos per month, you can call a doctor. And it's unlimited, right? So if you go to a doctor right now, di ba, punta ka sa clinic, it's probably 600 to 2,000 bucks. This one is 60 pesos, unlimited consultation to a doctor. So kahit madaling araw, you know what I mean? Parang pag masakit yung umuubo ka, COVID na ba to, pwede ka tumawag sa Consulta MD. Our consultation grew by 1,550% versus pre-pandemic numbers, and has also become the critical support to the Philippine healthcare ecosystem during the pandemic. We have more than 1 million registered users in Consulta MD, and Consulta MD basically helped decongest hospitals by becoming the first point of contact. As mentioned, pag may nararamdaman ka, tawag ka Consulta MD. So this year, Consulta MD continues to consumerize healthcare by making it more affordable and accessible, making it as simple as buying load. Diba? That's the ultimate goal. Seeing a doctor, dapat simple lang yan dapat affordable yan and that's what we're doing here in 917 Ventures. It's available in over 50,000 retail outlets nationwide, including convenience stores, gasoline station, malls, e-commerce marketplaces such as Shopee and Lazada. During the pandemic also, we have another COVID startup. We call it a COVID startup. In 917 Ventures, we built 6 companies during COVID from the comfort of our own home because there's so many pain points that needs to be solved. So we created Health Now along with a few digital platforms. Health Now was accredited by DOH as a response to the government's call to help our frontliners during the pandemic. A year into its operation, Health Now has gained more than 500,000 users and also grew consultations 300%. Filipinos now have access to round-the-clock online teleconsultations, medicine delivery, and centralized medical record. Health Now also has enabled more than 1 million vaccinations through the Ayala Group's COVID Shield program. In e-commerce, which I'm sure we're going to talk about later on, we have PureGo. PureGo is our online grocery that become one of the Metro Manila's top of mind grocery delivery services. It has more than 18,000 SKUs. It's available in 28 cities and counting. PureGo is our joint venture with Pure Gold of the Call family, one of the largest supermarket chains in the Philippines. PureGo has made it easier to get our essentials through its cashless, no contact, same delivery service. Again, making grocery products available to everyone nationwide. During COVID also, we also helped distribute a lot of boxes to more than 90 barangays in their community pantry efforts. Aside from that one, as Undersecretary mentioned earlier, we need to help our SMEs, enable them into their digital journey. And therefore, during the pandemic, we created this company called Rush. Rush is basically an online e-commerce platform that allows SMEs and businesses create their online store in days, right? And it's very affordable. And syempre, pag meron ka ng online store, hindi naman automatic yung mga bibili, madidiscover ka, di ba? And therefore, we have this business called AdSpark. AdSpark is a digital agency, one of the largest digital agency, if not the largest digital agency in the country. AdSpark basically helps our SMEs no, and businesses advertise online digitally. And then, of course, we have other companies pa, no, in 917 Ventures. So these are just a few of the focus areas or companies that we believe have been showing growth during the pandemic, as well as areas wherein we can leverage Globe's presence and support and expertise. And as mentioned, Globe as the leading mobile operator or telecom company, we have more than 80 million customers, no? More than 100,000 business customers as well. So those are our unfair advantage. So in the end, the goal is to uplift the lives of the Filipino people through digital solutions. And in 917 Ventures, we are basically committed to building more ventures to further empower the nation and enable the digital life. So thank you. That's about it.
Thank you, Vince. That was very exciting. Harnessing those digital platforms for alleviating those pain points, so to speak. It almost becomes too painless. Now my wife easily buys her plants through GCash, and I could not do anything to stop that. Okay, so let's go on through a roundtable discussion on several issues that we want to highlight. I think first of all, this group here is the sectors represented is a very good balance. So we have here the government represented by Usec. We have education represented by Chancellor Dong, and the business and innovation sector by Mr. Yamat. Now, each of you have a role to play, has a role to play. And my first question, I guess, is how do you envision your role, the role of your institution or your sector which you represent to this notion of a transformed Philippines? And I think I will add, I would need to ask you, what do you think the roles of the other institutions beside yourselves? Like, for example, like the education sector for business, that will best complement your role in this transformed Philippines? And how can synergies be harnessed effectively? I think we'll begin with Usec.
Yeah, thank you, Carl. Well, like what I pointed out in the beginning, digital transformation would require a whole of government and a whole of society approach. And in implementing our Industry 4.0 initiatives, DTI is working closely together with other government agencies, DOLE, DOST in particular, DICT, with CHED, with DepEd, with NEDA, and the others. And apart from these government agencies, we also work and collaborate with industry groups, with the academe as well, civil society and other stakeholders. And the role of DTI is really to serve as facilitator or coordinator in implementing the 6 major pillars that I've earlier mentioned. In terms of embracing Industry 4.0, I think we have already seen that the crisis has actually accelerated the adoption of Industry 4.0 technologies. And Vince has shared with us a very detailed experience with respect to Globe and how they grew, because how demand grew because of the pandemic. And in the future, the same technologies would be needed as we recover, as we restart the economy, and as we prepare for the post-crisis future. We, in DTI, we are supporting industry's shift towards digital transformation and crafting and implementing people-centered digital transformation plans and programs, of course, with focus on inclusive growth. We are in the process as well of building a national center for AI research, and this is going to serve as hub for data scientists and other researchers as they conduct AI R&D, AI trainings, and AI consultancy services. And this center aims primarily to support the AI needs of micro, small, and medium enterprises, startups, and the large enterprises. In this age of innovation and transformation, the vision is to make the Philippines an AI center of excellence. And then for capacity building and human resource development, we are developing industry skills framework in order to identify the skills and the competencies needed by industries in preparation for the jobs of the future, especially in view of the Industry 4.0 technologies, as well as to address the jobs skills mismatch. This industry skills framework would be used as vital inputs in developing training programs or introducing curricular changes in order to ensure that the skills demanded by industries would be sufficiently provided. Let me also discuss a little bit about our work with respect to developing our startup ecosystem, as well as linking our startups with MSMEs. Well, we view startups as key drivers of economic growth and job creation. They are also a catalyst for disruptive innovation. So to realize this, we keep our focus on growing the number of startups in the country, increasing early stage funding, and building quality startups. Right now, our startup is still a very young, but with a lot of potentials. We are also implementing programs to help build the startup ecosystem, create a more enabling business environment, and provide incubation and acceleration programs to help more startups grow, develop, and scale up their operations. At the same time, we are supporting the digitalization of our MSMEs and implementing programs to improve their access to finance, technology, and skilled workers. We are also, of course, connecting the startups with MSMEs to make our micro, small, and medium enterprises more innovative. And we are as well to bridge the gaps in the innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem. We are establishing regional inclusive innovation centers to connect startups and spin-offs from universities. So I think we are already starting to work with the UPLB where Dong is. Of course, we are connecting those spin-offs from the universities with government agencies and the business sector and accelerate the commercialization of their products and services. And these innovation centers would serve as venues for design thinking workshops, along with networking and engagement with the academe and industry, as well as networking hubs and R&D shared facilities for rapid prototyping and demonstration. And lastly, on enabling our business environment, we continue to strengthen the institutional and regulatory framework by addressing bureaucratic red tape, streamlining and automation of government processes and regulations. And of course, there's also the need for us to scale up investments in digital infrastructure and improve investments in building other physical infrastructures. The government also has an important role to play in building a robust startup and innovation ecosystem. Let me mention a few of these policy changes that were implemented in more recent years. The Ease of Doing Business Act, which has streamlined government processes, systems, and procedures, and the Innovative Startup Act and the Philippine Innovation Act, which both of which aim to provide funding to support innovation and the implementation of startup development programs.
Thank you, Usec Fito. Now you mentioned several things like a National Center for AI, those RIICs that need heavy involvement of the education sector. Mm-hmm. So, Chancey Dong, if you want to comment on some of those, that would be enlightening. What is the role of the education sector?
As I mentioned, this pandemic has hastened our institution to be transformed with the digitalization of our educational sector and our economic system, and therefore it allows us the opportunity to reshape the way we assess our students and to make them future ready, to future proof their skills and talents, and we will prepare them for an increasingly data science led and digitally complex world that would demand dexterity and computing skills. As a university, we will provide them with a conducive environment for remote or the flexible learning through a combination of adaptive and blended learning at an intensified scale. And this flexible learning will be enhanced with teaching methods, modern teaching methods and equipment and facilities that will enrich the acquisition of ethical, entrepreneurial, innovative, critical thinking, and digital skills of our students to boost their employability and to nurture their interdisciplinary lifelong learning skills with global perspectives. And we will intensify their experience, engage them with transformative academic and co-curricular activities imbued with social responsibility and accountability. In other words, we will harness this interdisciplinary or interagency collaboration and partnership with DTI, for instance, and the private sector on the other hand, giving us signals on how we can further hone the skills and the employability of our students to be digitally prepared in this to be data science led and digitally complex world.
Thank you, Chancey Dong. I mean, it's important that the education sector could be, at least along the curve on these new changes in industry and in government work. And I think this is important, for instance, for business, the relationship of business with education, business with government. Usec Vita mentioned that you have facilities to enable startups to have this startup ecosystem. And Chancellor Dong mentioned that they are trying to have a data science-led education approach towards their education programs. So given this, that there's like impetus from government and education, how does the business sector harness those kind of like big movements? How do they respond, Vince?
So super very happy, hearing that from Dr. Camacho and Undersecretary Aldaba. The business sector basically, of course, we're looking for the right talent, diba? In building our new companies and in taking all of our existing business to the next phase. Most of the businesses, they're going to be disrupted, obviously, diba? But they'll be disrupted by kids. not us, right? But by kids. All of the education that they're getting from the best universities, UP, and everything else, and the support of government is very important. But if you ask me, I think what the country needs is we need to encourage entrepreneurship in this country and support them. Why? I think some of us are very risk averse. We're very careful kasi, di ba? Maybe because of our upbringing also as Filipinos. Maybe a lot of you will not agree with me, but this is my observation, personal observation. A lot of us are parang when our parents taught us, right? Yung upbringing nga natin is, hey, son, study hard, graduate, di ba? Work hard, be a vice president, and work for someone else, right? That's usually the tendency that we see. And therefore, Filipinos are the best employees, right? In the world, anywhere in the world, we're basically the best. We're the best engineers, we're the best software developers, we're the best doctors in everything. that's service related. But very few Filipinos, if you ask me, are like, you know what, like trailblazing in creating new companies and disruptive companies. Maybe because nga ganon, di ba? And I really encourage us, especially the government, di ba? And that's why I like what the Undersecretary mentioned earlier, that startup ecosystem. We need to support them Kasi they're takot, di ba? Parang they're takot, parang, oh my God, can I actually build this? Do I have enough capital? The capital, if you ask me, it's available, di ba? There are a lot of corporate venture CVC, corporate venture capital already. Family offices, conglomerates are putting in money, but they just want to see it because in the startup world, you're investing in that founder, di ba? You're not basically naman investing in the idea. The idea is a second step na lang yan But the founder kasi is the one that makes it happen. So for me, parang I think that's what we need in this country. We need to develop more entrepreneurs in 917 Ventures, and that's the reason why we built it this way. 917 Ventures basically is a corporate venture builder. Filipinos who wants to be entrepreneur, but they don't want to worry about that payroll, diba, that salary. Kasi diba, if you're an entrepreneur, oh my God, you're the last one to get the salary, right? Because you need to pay everyone else before yourself. That's why we built 917 Ventures. Join us, we'll pay you. Right? We'll pay you, but we will also allow you to build and solve the biggest pain points of this country. So that's our thinking, diba, naman. So thank you, Carl. I hope I was able to answer you.
Yeah, that's great. I think that whole risk-taking, entrepreneurship, like drive for young Filipinos, that must be harnessed, because that will drive all those new trailblazing technologies and solutions to all these pain points that you were trying to tell us a while ago. And but the backbone of all of this is this move towards digitalization, right? And I think each of your sectors have a role to play in this movement towards digitalization. Now, what are the low-hanging fruits for digitalization, for example, in business or in education? For instance, Usec FITA has mentioned that one of their programs is to digitalize some of the processes of MSMEs. Maybe you want to elaborate more on that, Usec FITA, on how the DTI envisions digitalizations of small enterprise, medium and small enterprises.
Well, maybe I would also like to put some context. We see these new technologies as drivers by which we would be able to improve our competitiveness. And one particular technology which we think really has a lot of opportunities is artificial intelligence. It has a lot of potential to bring about positive change, especially if we're able to develop this correctly. And that's the reason why we are putting up the National Center for AI Research. The wide use of AI represents a big window of opportunity for the Philippines to leverage on our existing comparative advantage, particularly in the IT BPM sector. We would like as well to upgrade our BPO sector, make it more AI powered. As you know, we are already #1 in voice, but then given all these machines and robots, our workers could easily be displaced, and hence the need for us to adjust and adopt these new technologies. And through AI R&D, we would be able to address social, economic, environmental, and health issues and create innovative goods and services to help us finally eradicate poverty in the country. And AI could have large economic impact based on the calculations by Kearney and EDBI for the Philippines. AI has the potential to add $92 billion to our GDP, and actually $1 trillion to the region by 2030. And currently, there are already many Filipino tech startups that are using AI as their core technology of their business model. So Other areas of focus would be precision farming to improve the productivity of the agriculture sector and increase the incomes of farmers, along with smart manufacturing, healthcare services, AI-powered BPO, I already mentioned, smart cities, and resilient technology. And using technologies like voice recognition, augmented reality, robotics, AI, 5G connectivity, and Internet of Things, we can create new products or solutions in the following areas: smart buildings and smart home technology, including smart manufacturing, precision agriculture, digital health, e-gaming, smart assistants, vehicle technology, resilient technology, audio, video, and edtech. And let me just cite one example. Ionics is a Filipino electronics company that invested in a smart factory prior to the pandemic. And it was able to increase its output by 100%, but it had to reduce its workers by 90% in one production line. But at the same time, its engineering and computer science staff increased by 200%, while its profitability went up between 10 and 20%. And according to Ionics, while the COVID crisis has affected them significantly, had it not been for their smart factory, the impact of the pandemic on their business would have been far much worse. And maybe another example would be Union Bank, which has been delivering innovation and digital initiatives to promote financial inclusion. In fact, they are the first 5G powered bank in the country. And during the pandemic, usage volumes of their open finance platform rose by over 3,000% in the last 6 months of 2020. And then I2I's network also helped expedite the ayuda, the disbursement of DSWD's social amelioration program. And then other opportunities would be fintech and e-commerce. These are actually our subsector strengths. And amid the pandemic, local fintech startups actually increased their volume of transactions, and they were able to raise funding for expansion. Vince, you did not mention, but I will mention it. This year, the Philippines has just seen its first unicorn, and that's fintech company Mint or GCash. With now it has a valuation of over $2 billion US. And then, of course, the acceleration of digital transformation paved the way for the growth of e-commerce in the Philippines. And the country's revenue in e-commerce is estimated at over $5 million US in 2021, with market volume projected to reach $12 million US by 2025. And DTI is implementing a lot of programs to support our MSMEs that are shifting towards e-commerce. And GCash is a partner, a very valuable partner.
That's nice to hear. Maybe Vince, you would convince Usec Vita to support your other ventures with 917. You mentioned.
No, I will actually get in touch with Vince after this.
That's great. That's great. And thank you for PS for bringing these people together. Okay.
Exactly.
So, how about you, Vince? Like, I know that you're working on digitalization for several efforts to ease the pain points, so to speak. And what other, I mean, in business, what other things that we may not know that digitalization can offer that could help Philippines? You mentioned health. You mentioned e-commerce and this digital transfers.
Yeah.
What do you think is the next battleground?
There's a lot. You know why? Kasi there are a lot of a lot of problems diba, to solve. Ang kulang time diba? Time. But I'll talk about opportunities, diba? And all of these challenges in our country. So there's a study released yesterday or the other day, this week lang, by Google and Temasek and Bain, diba? I don't know if you guys read it, 2021, the e-economy. And the Google guys and the Temasek guys basically updates that, no, on an annual basis. So the Philippines has seen 12 million new digital consumers since the start of the pandemic. 12 million. Laki yan, ha? Kasi kailan lang ba tayo, di ba? 12 million since the start of the pandemic, of which 63% are not from Metro Manila. 63%. Diba? So that delta is coming from the provinces. Massive growth, if you ask me. The study also says that the pre-pandemic digital users consumed on an average 4.3 more services since the pandemic began. Okay, and 95% of them are still consumers today. So basically, since we're all stuck at home, na-habituate tayo, di ba, when it comes to digitalization. And I'm 100% sure, di ba, even your parents na hindi naman nag-grab food before, hindi nag-Gcash, parang sinasabi nila, son, ba't ngayon lang to, di ba? But it's been there, right? So we're basically forced, di ba, to go digital. And the nice thing about this is, especially for the country, di ba, and most of you are economists, di ba, there's a significant headroom for us here in the Philippines. The Philippines has the lowest digital consumer penetration in the region. The lowest. But because we only have 68%, di ba, of our internet users consuming online services, some kasi medyo nasa ceiling na eh, di ba? Tayo ang laki pa ng growth eh. Okay. And if you look at it naman, even within, di ba, sa mga companies under my group, Gcash, it's really there, right? So that's really exciting, no? If you ask me. We are the fastest growing market in the region for digital services, driven by strict lockdowns. Filipinos, alam mo yun, pag survival mode, gagawin natin yung ayaw natin gawin eh. Di ba? And that's basically what happened. Right? Everyone basically adopted to Gcash. Everyone adopted to Consulta MD. You don't want to go to the hospital, di ba, to see your doctor. You just want to parang dial in, di ba, and have a consultation. And the nice thing about that, for the Philippines, for 2021, the GMV, when I say GMV, this is gross merchandise value. In e-commerce kasi, ang measurement is yung gross merchandise value na pumapasok sa sistema, diba? Is expected to reach a total value of $17 billion. 2021. That's a 93%, diba, year-on-year surge. So there's a massive growth in e-commerce. That's more than 132%. And by 2025, diba, Philippines ang pinakamabilis eh, when it comes to growth. The overall internet economy will reach 40 billion in value, growing 24% CAGR. So think about that. Diba, for especially for the academia, really nice, diba, to be in the academe too now and teach our students that, hey, it's a tipping point happening now, diba? There's a lot of opportunities now. But we need to teach them, diba, with government about the right policies, diba, the education sector, on what digital is. Okay, so that's basically it, no, Carl. A lot of opportunities. Now, if I'll share with you some instances, diba, parang how it affected digital. For example, lang Gcash, and see, Undersecretary mentioned it earlier. Gcash, you have 51 million registered users now. 51 million. That's basically like more than like half of the population, well, less than that. And 70% of them are adults. If you're a Gcash user, you use it twice a day. But twice a day, okay? And there are like 13 million daily active transactions every day in Gcash. And here's the nice thing part about Gcash. And that's why I know Filipinos are digitally savvy. There are 3 million merchants and social sellers in Gcash. 3 million. So DTI, parang syempre wala naman, di man natin nakikita yan eh, di ba? Kasi social sellers eh, right? So they're like social sellers in Gcash. They're using technology to survive, right? Hey, parang I wanna sell, di ba? So peer-to-peer selling na lang sila. So that's the economy. And then syempre Gcash will probably hit 3 trillion, di ba, in value, transaction value this year. And I think I mentioned it also a while ago, how digital impacted the Philippines. With GCash, imagine I mentioned 70% of UITF, diba? These are unit investment trust funds, diba? Filipinos don't invest it before because they feel it's not accessible, diba? That you need to talk to a bank, diba? For you to be able to invest. Right now, if you have GCash, you can invest anytime, right? Diba? Mga tingi-tingi investment, you can invest in the global stock if you have a GCash account, right? Same goes with G-Insure. Imagine one third of all new insurance policies in this country are being purchased inside GCash, diba? So, and that's the reason why innovation is very important. Innovation is important because you make it available to the underserved, diba? Para make it available as pervasive as possible. Kumbaga, even yung lower class of the society will be able to access, diba, the products and services, financial and products and services of those who are there, diba, on top. And that's basically how we did it. For healthcare, you mentioned, Carl. Healthcare is super important. Why? In my opinion, we really have a poor healthcare infrastructure, diba, in the country. The capacity is low. The region is lagging in terms of medical infrastructure and healthcare professionals. I was in the hospital earlier. The patient time, the wait time is longer, diba? The reason why I'm not in the hospital because I can do it kasi kailangan ng talaga makita, diba? I can do it in virtual, diba? The patient time is longer. There's an equal distribution of resources when it comes to healthcare in the Philippines. Did you know that 6 out of 10 Filipinos pass away without even having the opportunity to consult a doctor? Diba, that's terrible, right? And the current doctor to population ratio is 1 doctor to 33,000 Pinoys. Parang kawawa naman, diba, ang Pilipinas. And the Philippines more than 7,100 islands, right? For some Filipinos, the nearest doctor is a boat ride away, right? And it takes 6 hours to see a healthcare worker. For some, diba? Especially in the provinces, wherein the healthcare worker is only available a few times a day, diba? Dun sa barangay, ano. Kaya ginawa namin itong konsulta MD because we believe that most cannot make that boat trip and long trip. May sakit ka na diba? Commute ka pa. So, and that's the reason why we did this, diba? So, konsulta MD, may phone ka, lahat naman tayo may telepono, kahit hindi smartphone yan, you can call. Call lang, di ba? Telemedicine. And you'll have access to a doctor. 60 pesos. 60 pesos. Unlimited. Kahit tumawag ka every single day to our doctors, they will answer you. Di ba? And that's innovation. That's making it basically available to every single Filipino. Right? 60 pesos, come on. Ilang, mas mahal pa yung ano, whatever, di ba? Yung sigarilyo mo siguro. Di ba? So we're done. We're not yet done with finance, right? Yes, 51 million users. That's finance for all. Right now, what we want is healthcare for all, but digitally, right? So that's the goal, diba, on the healthcare space. So I hope I was able to answer.
Yeah, that's very exciting. So healthcare for all, finance for all, those are within grasp with this new technology. But I want to ask Chancey Dong, how about education for all? How would digitalization help us reach that sort of goal?
Yeah, thanks, Carl. Very engaging tong session na to. Hearing from Usec, Aldaba, and Vince allows us to further examine our curricular programs. The way we deliver yung education, yung instruction sa mga students. It allows us to re-examine ano pa ba yung mga topics na hindi na kailangan. At that would allow innovation, no? Mga topics, yung mga degree programs na dapat nang i-abolish at talagang i-institute na yung mga more relevant programs. Even the way we deliver, no? Kung dati-dati pure lecture or chalk and talk way of doing things, di ba? Boring na sa mga estudyante yun eh, no? And how to make the lectures, the class atmosphere more exciting and dynamic for students. Of course, hindi pa pwedeng boka lang yan. I mean, dapat more interactive, and you mixed up with more virtual online at the same time, be creative in introducing the topic. Kaya with the things that mentioned by Usec Aldaba, uh, for instance, we have to hasten, for example, our institution of the PhD and the master's program in data science. No, otherwise, how can we provide how can we provide the science and technology sector, the DOST, the employment sector, with these needed skills by the workforce, by the labor market, kung wala yung mga ganitong employable skills, no? Also, it allows us to further examine our systems. For example, so okay, we have to buy computers for our students, for our faculty, retrain them, train them, no? Alam nyo, yung procurement system, nakaka-frustrate yung procurement system nung tumatawa si Usec Aldaba, no? I really hope na sana our legislators would have to have kailangan seryoso na yung revisiting nitong procurement system. Kailangan talagang mabago eh. Why, Carl? Imagine, kailangan mo ng computers, bumili ng computers, and all those computer gadgets and equipment. Kailangan mo sa lab, kailangan mo i-offer yung klase mo to an online platform, kailangan mo ng mga gadgets. And, kami sa gobyerno, we have to pass through all this procurement system. Imagine, kailangan mo 6 or 3 months, in 4 months time, or baka next month, kailangan mo nang bilhin eh. Pero hindi, nakaka-frustrate. Kasi, okay yung procurement system, wala akong problema. Again, to safeguard, yung graft and corruption, ma-minimize or not to totally eliminate. Pero grabe, yung mga computers na, mga laptops, mga tablets na gusto naming bilhin para sa estudyante, sa mga staff namin, isang taon na hindi pa mabibili dahil sobra Usec. I think our legislators should have to rethink and to revisit this procurement systems and other related systems and processes. It allows us to revisit our again procedures or protocols, no? Sa opisina, panay mga tawag dito, mga paperless transactions na dapat, Imagine ilang coupon ban, ilang boxes of papel ang masisave namin kung mga online processes namin are really this updated, So it allows us a lot of opportunities itong digitalization. This nakakakuan nga minsan dahil why would this pandemic would cause us to re-examine all of these systems, di ba? In the age of industrial revolution, dapat doon tayo patungo na in a way na do we need another pandemic para ma-level up yung ating sistema? Wag naman na sana eh. Thanks, Carl.
Thank you, Chancey Dong. Damang-dama ko kayo.
Oo nga, ako din. Ako din.
So
I completely sympathize, and we have the same problems, and that's the reason why the AI center that we are building is going to be private sector led. If it's going to be government, I don't know when we will be able to start the procurement and all the. Of course, you would be needing supercomputers and with our system, it's really be very difficult.
That's true. Oh, this is a good segue, I guess, to the final question that I have for all of you. Now let's move on to the challenges, either perceived or actual challenges that your sector is confronting right now. For instance, in the education sector, Chancey Dong mentioned that all these procurement government regulations hamper like the development. Let's start with you, Chancey Dong, because you started the ball rolling, so to speak. What are the challenges for like the full transition towards digitalization and harnessing all these fourth industrial revolution technologies and methods?
Yeah, this pandemic and mass, that very digital divide that nag-exist na. Again, we all know this. Poverty exacerbated all this. Alam mo sa estudyante namin, kung if we don't provide them those gadgets, no, we don't buy them. Kung wala kami binibili para sa kanila, hindi magpapatuloy ang pag-aaral. Exactly why we have to hasten all the processes to at least ma-narrow man lang yung gap, no? Those who have and those who have not, no? Mga estudyante namin. We as a public university, the national university, no? And na we wish to provide more inclusive higher education skills and training for our students, no? Talagang marami pa rin, no, segments ng aming student population ang talagang may kahirapan. And para ma-providean sila, no, mabigyan sila ng access, no? Kailangan bumili kami. We have to get the support of our alumni, the private sector to help us purchase this, no? Mga donations, solicitations, no? And para mas mapabilis pa sana, ang nabanggit ko nga kanina, para mapabilis pa yung pag-provide ng mga ganitong serbisyo, ng mga gadgets sa estudyante, yun. Nabanggit ko din yung procurement system, no? So the digital divide that exists between our poor students who have no access to connectivity. Ma'am Usec, talagang po ang connectivity po talaga is very, very challenging, no? Sabihin natin, yes, we have the best faculty, best students, and nandun sila sa kanilang mga remote areas, in their areas of residence, no? And the only way that they can participate in the online virtual classes is through the connectivity. Pero wala Usec eh. Hirap talaga. And we have to design ways and means. For example, they can go to a nearby LGU na may access, no? Easy access sa computer, sa connectivity. Mataas ang signal, no? Or go to a nearby state university or school, no? Kasi doon mismo sa bahay nila ay talagang wala kung mababa ang kanilang signal ay talagang hindi po sila makaka-participate. Thank you.
Yeah. Just bridging that divide between the haves and have-nots. Sabi niyo nga, Chancellor Dong, that's really one big challenge, because inevitably people will get left behind when this whole digitalization and this whole transformation takes place. So it's important that even at that level, when there's students, that you can find ways to bridge that divide, because otherwise society as a whole, there will always be this divide. Thank you, Chancey Dong. How about Usec Fita? What are the challenges you as someone from DTI? I know the challenges for industrialization, for innovation, they're very sort of complex. And what do you think are the main challenges holding back Filipino firms from harnessing all these technologies in digitalization?
Yeah, thank you, Carl. And those mentioned by Dong really are real, real. Those are real issues. There was a company who showed me a video because they were trying to create an app to address nga itong lack of connectivity, wherein kids, they really climb the trees just to get a signal and be able to download their modules. No, nakakaano. But in the case of DTI, one of the fears that we've been seeing is that workers worry that they would be replaced by machines. And in fact, there's a McKinsey report which says that 48% of activities in the Philippines could be automated, and that's equivalent to 18.2 million jobs. And there's also another study from AIM showing the probability of jobs being automated, and this is highest in agriculture, forestry, and fishing sector. And in both reports, the message is that low-skilled, low-educated, and routinized jobs are the most vulnerable to the adverse effect of technological change. But then research also shows that AI and robots, they could lead to displacement, and they could also lead to income effects. And then there's also another effect, which I call innovation effect, through which jobs could be destroyed and created. For the innovation effect, we see that the use of these new technologies could create new jobs arising from the new tasks and new products that emerge from these new technologies. And so the need to focus really on upskilling and reskilling the workforce. Those to be displaced, they need to be upskilled and reskilled. And at the same time, of course, we know that there would be new tasks to be created, and hence we need to upgrade the skills of our workforce. We need agile ways of working, and we could reach the potential if we have a skilled Industry 4.0 workforce. And I think it was Union Bank who shared with us that the people actually represent the secret sauce behind their success in digital banking. They say that digital transformation is only 10% technology and 90% human. Technology makes life easier, but it cannot inspire human and digital or emotional connection. And another challenge, I think, would be our low gross expenditure on R&D, which is below the UN recommended 1% of GDP. Philippines is also below the ASEAN average of 0.76%. And then in terms of internet speed and quality, we need to catch up, maybe by allowing more competition and substantially increasing our investments in digital infrastructure. And let me also share, we conducted a technology utilization survey in order to understand the Industry 4.0 readiness of firms in the country. And overall, the bulk of the companies still have very low technology utilization, meaning they're still using purely manual operations, spreadsheet management system with a standalone, some have standalone database management system, but still with legacy applications. And I think this is interesting. In terms of the characteristics, firms that are large with foreign equity operating inside ecozones and exporting have the highest technology utilization scores. Micro and small enterprises have the lowest technology utilization scores. And in terms of geographic distribution, highest technology utilization is still in NCR, in Central Luzon and Calabar Zone. So if we won't be able to address these issues, our adoption of these new technologies could worsen the digital divide, and hence the need for us to really pay close attention, making sure that the adoption of Industry 4.0 would not lead to the inequality and the digital divide. So yeah, I think I'm going to stop there. There are a lot more issues, but I think those are the most pressing ones.
Yeah, and there are a lot of them. The most pressing ones, they're there and they must be solved quickly. But Vince, you mentioned earlier that one of the challenges is actually developing this appetite for entrepreneurship among young people. Do you think that there are other challenges apart from, say, from that, like risk taking? How would you evaluate the risk taking behavior of like Filipino innovators? Is it a problem of finance? Is it a problem of like there are no like big banks to support them? There's no modality for that, like as big as Singapore, for example, or yeah. So what are the challenges in your sector?
That's a really good question, no? Kasi like, for example, in 917 Venture, kasi we're a venture builder. So imagine during the pandemic, we created 6 new companies, di ba? Siyempre, business and corporate can do that, right? But in the end, companies are run by people. And ideally, you hire entrepreneurial people. Kasi para mabilis, di ba? Because technically only the paranoid survive naman talaga. So net, if you look at other countries, di ba, when it comes to digital, who are these great founders ba? The great founders are basically engineers. Di ba? Engineers, technical engineers. Yes, go to school, study hard. I have this brilliant idea. I can write code. I drop off out of college and create Facebook, Google, and whatnot, right? Did you know that in the Philippines and in the Southeast Asian region, there are like 8 million ASEAN jobs, di ba, in na potential, available. In the Philippines, close to 1 million IT jobs. Kaya lang kulang. Kulang tayo, okay? Because almost everyone is basically there, right? But if we have IT students naman, parang they're not well equipped, diba? Because the way we teach our IT professional, parang it's kulang. You know what I mean? A few units and then okay, you can code na. Okay. Did you know that in 917 Ventures during the pandemic, there's this student, because we have this Velocity Venture Builder program. Okay. An undergrad student from LaSalle approached us and he said, you know what? I'm trying to take a gap year. Diba? Gap year. Hindi bago sa atin yun during the pandemic. Like a lot of students took a gap year because the parents were like retrenched, they don't have the tuition, etc. And he told me, wala na pang ano, wala daw pang tuition, di ba? Wala pang tuition, but I want to solve it. 19-year-old boy, right? Undergrad. Sabi ko, come on, join us. Let's solve your problem. This is his idea. I want to learn how to code, but I'm a science major, right? Galing, di ba? I want to learn how to code. I'm a science major. Because if you guys know, di ba? The IT guys kasi nakaka-side hustle, di ba? They go to Upwork, go out on a website, do some of these things, di ba? They make money in US dollars. The Filipinos are one of the best. Again, I told you, di ba? When it comes to services. So sabi ko, sige nga, gawin natin yan. And then he said, but I want it as a study now, pay later. Sabi ko, uy, parang mahirap yun. Siyempre, may expense, di ba? But the business model makes so much sense. Kasi we're doing that na nga in financial inclusion, the buy now, pay later. Why not study now, pay later? So I told him, this is last May. Let's do it. Diba? Let's do it. Try natin. So we launched that startup. It's a 12-week boot camp. Okay. So even if you're an economics major, you're a doctor, you want to learn how to code, apply. It's free. Diba? Libre siya. 12 weeks, we're going to teach you how to code. Okay. Here's the result of that experiment. 83%, right, of our graduates are placed in IT jobs within 6 weeks after graduation. 83%. It's for me, parang, wow, that's mind-blowing, diba? Parang 80, you attended a course for 3 months. Every single day, we just teach you how to code, right? So we first, sabi na, sige, full stack development. And then we said, sige nga, let's try other things, diba? So did a little bit of survey, data science, Usec. So we did data science, and lakas din on demand, diba? So 83% of graduates, diba? So Chancellor, medyo disruptive, diba? Because we're basically giving free education, right? Parang stay Q na nga, diba? Libre. Pero ang usapan, when you graduate, babayaran mo ako, diba? Babayaran mo ako. So everyone agreed to that one. And right now, those 88% are starting to pay us. This is a pilot. It's not yet even a company. Diba? So Filipinos, if they want to do something, they'll do it. Okay. Number two, the reason why parang I'm supporting that one is because of what Undersecretary mentioned earlier. Yung singularity, AI. There's a possibility. Yan na yung sinasabi ni Mark Zuckerberg sa atin, di ba? Di ba? Hey, it's gonna be the metaverse, di ba? This pandemic, this is semi-metaverse. Every single morning, we go to our office, turn on our laptop, and we're in the zone. We're just in front of a screen, right? Technically, if you ask me, semi-metaverse. That's virtual. We're here. Supposedly, we're all together in a conference room, right? Or in an auditorium, and we're there in front. Pero ganito na eh. Ganito na yung mundo natin eh, di ba? The economy is all a little bit opened up. I was in BGC earlier. Wala pa rin tao. Di ba? Weekend lang pag may tao. But I was there. Ba't walang tao? Okay na. Di ba? Less than 2,000 na lang ah. Pero hindi eh. We're so used to digital. It's so convenient. I'll just stay at home. Di ba? So, yung education, I think it can be solved. And if we can educate our countrymen, make it accessible, ang accessibility kasi sa atin, sa Pilipinas, dapat libre. Diba? Dapat libre. And they'll use it. And that's what we did. 83% will graduate. And then the bet is, sana bayaran kami. And they're paying. Now, the question is, can we actually scale it? Right? Did you know that in those 3 months, I'll tell you how many applied. 3 months. This is a test. Test lang to. Parang pilot, di ba? Innovation. Close to 2,000 applied. Close to 2,000 applied. Parang that's a decent sized university, di ba? 2,000. Kasi free education. Eh. And then the conversion, to everyone's point, syempre may drop off, can be internet connectivity, kasi synchronous siya. Kasi that's the best way to learn, right? Wherein lahat ng estudyante nandyan, okay, I'm gonna teach you how to code. We graduate kami, gumawa nga ng delivery app eh. Diba? And that's not even an IT guy. It basically, no, mag-IT na ako. Gumawa ng delivery app, we were even surprised. Wow, galing, di ba? So much hope, di ba, for the country. We're here to support everyone. And I think the partnership between educators and government and the private sector is very, very important. Kaya si Usec, di ba? Pag usap tayo kasi ang laking huge potential, di ba? Huge potential for everyone here in our country.
I don't know about you, but I really like this discussion we're having. It's very eye-opening. Hearing from all the sectors represented here. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to, but we have time to go through some questions. I guess the first questions from the audience comes from Mr. Neri. Are there various areas in IT? This is for Vince. Are there various areas in IT that we need to concentrate on more? Where are leading tech sovereigns like India, Singapore focusing on that makes them grow their tech sector faster? Are schools focusing on the wrong areas, textbook or college degrees? I guess either Vince or Chancey Dong can answer that.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll answer it first. No. The best way kasi to be in tech para you're usable is to be a developer, a full stack developer, diba? Parang that's a generalist, diba? That's the first step. And or a full stack developer can do web development. That's the best one. And from there on, kumbaga if you're taking up medicine, diba? That's parang the GP, diba? Parang you kind of know everything, right? But you're not a specialist. And then after that one, a lot goes to data science, diba? A lot. Again, with the avenue or goal of AI, diba? Artificial intelligence, wherein everything will be predicted, diba? So data science is pretty strong. When we experimented, sige nga, data science tayo, it's pretty strong. Why? Why is data science important? Because when you create companies kasi, it's all about optimization and efficiencies, diba? In the future. And data is basically the one that will solve that. When you're efficient, your cost goes down, etc. Kaya medyo malakas yung data science. And then of course, the other ones, yeah, yung mga Salesforce.com, AWS, all of these cloud computing are really, really good courses too. And that's basically for the future.
Chancey Dong, are the schools though focusing on the wrong areas? I mean,
well, don't have the data on how schools offer their programs on IT, but yeah, mas na ko-confirm yung aming initiatives here at the university to focus on the more advanced degree programs, the master's and PhD programs in data science. Na-mention na yan ni Vince. Pero ang mas patutunguhan din pa rin namin is, for example, as applied to agriculture, as applied to fisheries, applied to other specializations, no? That will spur growth, for example, sa agriculture. I was invited as one of the judges, no, ng mga startups. At by sector, yung mga startups, agriculture, business, restaurants, HRM, na-include ako dun sa agriculture. Grabe yung data science-led type of curriculum na undergo ng mga students at paano nila ito in-apply sa agriculture. Kasi, alam niyo yun, yung napipredict yung fish, tama ba? Fish catch, for example. Or, again, yung digital agriculture. In essence, digital agriculture, no? So, siguro, yun yung mga areas na, una, the more generalized perspectives sa data science, then, kailangan we go into the specific areas on how this data science can be applied to the various sectors. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancey Dong. If there are any, if there's anyone from our audience who wants to ask a question, just feel free to unmute yourself. Is there anyone? If there is none, I'll read from the Q&A box. For 917, what steps are you taking towards data privacy? This is a big issue, I guess. Mm-hmm. You're into healthcare. How do you assure data privacy, for instance?
Yeah. So we take data privacy seriously, especially in 917 ventures, no? Because that's very important. we value, diba, the trust that our customers gave us. Each and every single company in our portfolio companies, they have their own DPO. In fact, our DPO host was recently awarded as the best DPO or data privacy officer in the country. So very, very important as well.
Thank you. I guess that's an important pillar. We couldn't move forward if we don't protect information and privacy, personal information and privacy of that.
Yep.
So yeah. Are there any other questions? If there are none, we're running out of time, unfortunately. But let me just thank our panelists. You know, in this panel, I'm so glad that we have learned about the potentials for digitalization towards a transform Philippines. We have learned that finance for all, healthcare for all, education for all can be possible, even having productive firms and good jobs. But of course, the needed skills and regulations must catch up. We need to support skills and entrepreneurship development, as well as research and development, infrastructure, as well as finance. And from Vince, we must encourage policies that would make risk-taking more possible, if there is such a thing. Like safety nets, for instance. And of course, before all of this, we need to solve the problem of inequality of access. Otherwise, you're just exacerbating the digital divide, which Chancey Dong and Usec Fita emphatically relayed to us. Now, thank you, everyone. Thank you. I really enjoyed this panel. Thank you for giving your time and expertise in this session. Thank you, Usec Fita, Mr. Yamat, and Chancellor Dong. We also thank the officials and staff of the Philippine Economic Society for making this session possible. We thank our attendees for participating in this very important conversation. Miguel, do you want the picture taking now? Yes? Okay. If you would just turn on your cameras for Miguel to take your pictures.
Right, we request the Zoom panelists to please turn on your cameras so we can have our group photo taken to memorialize this this session. All right, but please don't go away yet after the photo, so because we still have some parts of the program. All right, please, so to take the photo. All right, everybody smile. 1.
Thanks, Ma'am Fita, Vince, Carl. Thank you. Very great moderating. Doc Dong, thank you, Doc Dong.
Thank you, Sir Don.
Christine.
Thank you, Mr. Vince. Thank you,
Vince,
Carl.
salamat.
Thank you.
Salamat.
Really enjoyed this.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, very good discussion, Carl.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll just finish the rest of the program. We still have very important items left. Okay, so at the beginning of our session, we had a fitting tribute to Dr. Beniting Legarda, a pioneer economist, and we've honored him through the launch of the latest issue of the PRE Journal. Now, PES will honor the next generation of economists, the young ones, so to speak. So PES is aware of the contribution of these young economists to nation building. The PES Board of Trustees introduced an initiative to create a society of young achievers in the field of economics in 2017. Known as the Young Economists Honor Society, or YES, or YEHS, the main aim is to recognize and motivate the best and brightest economics graduates and scholars. The society is envisioned to serve as a platform to facilitate collaboration, sharpen social advocacies, and broaden scholarly activities among young economists. To lead the ceremony for batch 2021 of the Young Economists Honor Society, may we call on Dr. Saraline Daway Ducanes, the Secretary and Trustee of the PES. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Carl. Thank you, Carl.
This year's batch of the Young Economists Society is composed of 27 individuals from 5 schools. University of Asia and Pacific, and the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. Please allow me to acknowledge them by reading their names. From the Ateneo de Manila University, we have Paula Francesca Birong, Ignacio Gabriel Herrera, Joshua Christoph Log, Jean Angelica Morales, Maureen C., and Ashley Gabriel Valera. From the De La Salle University, we have Alicia Marie Alon, Brian Irvin Chan, Lizelle Ann Cruz, Miguel Emmanuel Genuino, Jericho Gideon Ignacio, Jerk Joshua Mary Layos, Eldrick Manahis, Angel Florence Meriliano, Jacqueline Gray Sonsing, and Dominic Hannah C. And from the University of Asia and the Pacific, we have Geraldine Wambanco. From the University of the Philippines, Salaman, we have Ira Buxit, Julia Antonina Castellon, Beatrice De Luna, Hannah Almira Gonzalez, Stephanie Ann Menor, Redwin Griffith Monteverde, Maurice Kyla Octaviano, Miranda Bernadette Panagiton, and Rina Francesca Rellosa. From the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, we have Dana May Yarte. Okay, to our YEHS honorees, please turn on your videos and unmute yourselves so we can start the oath taking. Okay, so please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I.
Aye.
Presence of the representatives of the Philippine Economic Society.
In the presence of the representatives of the Philippine Economic Society.
Accept membership into the 2021 Young Economists Honor Society and the Philippine Economic Society.
Accept membership into the 2021 Young Economists Honor Society
And the Philippine
and the Philippine Economic Society.
As member, I will abide by the Constitution.
As member,
I will
will abide
abide by the
Constitution
and by
The laws of the society.
by laws of the society.
Attend conferences and activities regularly.
And conferences and activities regularly.
And support and further the interests of the society and all its undertakings.
And support and further
the
interests of the society in all its
undertakings.
I further declare that I will assist in maintaining
I further declare that I will assist
in
in
maintaining,
building and strengthening the membership of the society.
building and strengthening the membership of the society.
Furthermore, I will help the society by actively serving.
Furthermore,
I will help
actively
society by actively serving
On committees and other capacities.
on committees and in other capacities
capacities
Where my efforts are needed.
where my
where my efforts are
needed.
So by the power vested in me by the Philippine Economic Society, I now declare you as having been inducted as a member in the Young Economists Honor Society and the Philippine Economic Society. You may now put down your hands. Congratulations to all of you. Now, PES would also like to acknowledge its 61 new members that joined the society this 2021. Some of them had taken their membership oaths in the 3 regional fora we held earlier this year. For the rest of the new members, they will take their membership oath today. We will flash their names on the screen. Okay, so to the new PES members who are present today, please turn on your videos and unmute yourselves. We will administer the oath. We have our new PES members. Please turn on your videos and please unmute yourselves. We will have the oath taking. Okay, please raise your right hand.
Oops, somebody's still here. Sorry.
Right. I state your name.
I, Marian de Luna,
In the presence of the representatives of the Philippine Economic Society,
in the presence of the representatives of the Philippine Economic Society,
take the solemn obligation to abide by the Constitution
take the solemn obligation to abide by the Constitution
and by laws of the society,
and by laws of the society,
to attend conferences and activities regularly,
To attend conferences and regularly.
to support and further the interests of the society in all its undertakings.
Support and further the interests of the society in all its
in
undertakings.
all its undertakings.
I further declare that I will assist in maintaining,
I further declare that I will assist in
maintaining,
building, and strengthening the membership of the society.
building, and strengthening the membership of the society.
Furthermore, I will help the society
I will help the society
by actively serving on committees
by
actively serving on
committees
committees
and in other capacities where my efforts are needed.
and
in
in
other
other
capacities where my efforts are
where my
needed.
efforts are needed.
You may put down your hands. By the power vested in me by the Philippine Economic Society, I now declare you as having been inducted as a member of the society. Congratulations. And especially much Mr. Usec and that we had yesterday. He is the CFO. For those of you who would like to join PES, you may visit our website at economicsph.org/membership for further details. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Now we come to a very important part of the whole PES event. This week, PES members participated in the Board of Trustees election, in which 5 trustees are to be elected. Now, we announced the election of the results by calling Dr. Joey Dacanay, PES trustee.
Good afternoon. As our 59th PES annual meeting and conference comes to a close, the 5 new trustee-elects shall be announced. But first of all, the PES Board of Trustees would like to thank with deepest gratitude for the outgoing PES Board of Trustees who are specifically Dr. Lawrence Dacuicuy from the De La Salle University and Undersecretary Rosemary Edilion from NEDA. And now, the results of the PS Board of Trustees election 2021 in alphabetical order are as follows. First, Dr. Sarah Lynn S. Daway Ducanes, Associate Professor of the School of Economics of the University of the Philippines. Professor Sarah is also the incumbent secretary of the PS. Second, we have Dr. Alice Joanne G. Ferrer, Professor and Dean, and is currently, College of Arts and Sciences, University of the Philippines, Visayas. And Dr. Alice Ferrer is currently our Visayas Regional Representative in the PS BOT. Third, Mr. Emilio S. Neri Jr., lead economist from the Bank of the Philippine Islands and past president of the PES. Fourth, Dr. Marites M. Chonco, full professor from School of Economics of De La Salle University. And fifth, Dr. Philip Arnold P. Tuaño, associate professor and chair of the Economics Department at Ateneo de Manila University. Congratulations to the newly elected and re-elected members of the PES Board of Trustees.
Congratulations to the trustee-elects, and thank you, Dr. Dakanay, for announcing the results. Finally, we have come to the end of this three-day conference. For the closing remarks and to express gratitude on behalf of the organizers, may we call on Vice President of PES, Dr. Charlotte Justine Giocno Sicat.
Thank you, Carl, and good afternoon, everyone. There is much to learn from the ideas exchanged and discussions held during this 59th Annual Philippine Economic Society Conference. Strides taken to build back better, such as innovations and digital solutions in government, and the financial and information and communications technology sectors were vital in reshaping the delivery of goods and services and served as platforms for providing social protection assistance to those whose income and livelihood were unintendedly affected by measures taken to manage the pandemic. Several sessions highlighted how digitalization was harnessed for upskilling and finding jobs, informing and bringing businesses and people together through novel payment schemes and solutions to pain points. There is still, of course, the challenge of the digital divide that exacerbates scarring for some in society that are excluded from education, healthcare, work, and credit access, all necessary for human capital and infrastructure development, investments needed for inclusive growth. At the same time, there are those who opt out of these solutions because of distrust in digital platforms or are left out because of the lack of their information in social registries. This is where information and knowledge is vital. Research, such as those shared during this conference, play a major role in both understanding the extent of the impact of the pandemic and finding ways forward. The diversity of topics in this conference shows that with COVID-19 now being endemic, there are many ways to contribute and opportunities to shape the narrative towards a transformed Philippines. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I would like to thank all of our partners, sponsors, speakers, session organizers, panelists, presenters, moderators, Philippine Economic Society members, the Board of Trustees who I've had the pleasure of working with this past year, and most importantly, the Secretariat, Mr. Miguel Caraan and those helping him out at the PSSC. Thank you so much, guys. Now, finally, I would like to invite you to the next year's conference, which would be a milestone 60th annual PES conference, which hopefully would be face-to-face or hybrid. Now, thank you again and stay well.
Thank you so much, Justine. It has been a productive 3 days, but finally we have reached the end of our program. But before everyone goes, may we request our attendees to accomplish the evaluation form. The link is flashed on the screen and it is in the chat box in the comment section. It's also in the Facebook live chat box there. Now, if you want an e-certificate for attending this session, you must submit this evaluation form. Finally, we would like to acknowledge and thank our partners, our platinum sponsors, De La Salle University School of Economics, the National Economic and Development Authority, the Philippine Competition Commission, our gold sponsors, the Aboitiz Power Corporation, DOSTP Card, the Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom, Philippines, and our silver sponsors, the Ateneo Center for Economic Research and Development, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, and the Union Bank of the Philippines. Maraming salamat for attending this past 3 days. It has been a fruitful discussion, and congratulations to the board and to the secretariat and to all participants. Mabuhay tayong lahat. Thank you so much.